All right. Thank you for accommodating the space in here in the room, and welcome everybody to the Material Science and Engineering seminar of today. Both in the room and also from home. My name is Dr. Peter Mullner. I'm a faculty here in this Micron School of Material Science and Engineering, and it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Chad Coffman. Joining Boise State University in 2022, Dr. Chad Coffman is currently an assistant professor of entrepreneurship and strategy in the Department of Management. He holds a PhD from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and a master's and a bachelor's degree in business management from Kansas State University. Dr. Coffman's research looks at technological opportunities in entrepreneurship, including the use of mobile telecommunications to improve entrepreneurship opportunities in developing economies. He is currently a member of the Academy of Management and of the African Academy of Management. Please help me welcome Dr. Coffman.
How's that? Pretty good? Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for coming in on a snowy Friday. This is a holiday, I think, in Kansas City, where I'm from, with the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. Feel free to boo my Kansas City Chiefs if you need to. I've been heckling my students throughout the playoffs about my unpopular Chiefs. We're the new Patriots now. So anyway, enough football. So it sounds like they're good to go on Zoom too. Great. Thanks for having me. I don't think I have a whole lot to say that's engineering specific, but hopefully it is engineering relevant. There are several hats that I wear here in addition to being a faculty member. One of them is Transform Grant Ambassador, and so I'll touch on that a little bit towards the end. The other is a faculty lead on the I-Corps grant here, which is very much relevant to what I would like to talk about. But I'm also an entrepreneurship professor, and so always happy to have somebody in the stuck in a chair listening to me talk for 45 minutes about entrepreneurship. Let me get an idea of what we have in the room here from, let's say, undergrads first. Do we have any undergrads in here? How about grad students? Okay, and then faculty makes up anybody that doesn't fit into one of those three buckets? Several, okay. What did I miss? Tech transfer? Yeah, okay. Perfect. All right, great. That helps me out. And then I'm going to talk about the business model canvas. So I'm going to kind of weave in some of the other things I'd like to talk about as I'm going through the business model canvas. But how many of you have heard of a business model canvas? Okay, how many of you have completed a business model canvas? Okay, good. I was hoping the whole room wouldn't be like, yes, very familiar with that, because I would have to come up with something new to talk about. So yeah, I'm gonna walk through the business model canvas. And the reason for doing that is it's the language that entrepreneurs use to talk about their ideas. And I would like for you to be able to speak the language to entrepreneurs. So when you have great ideas, they can understand what you're saying, because they certainly won't understand your technical language, and maybe speaking in different terms than you would use to describe your idea. So if you have an idea that you maybe would like to consider commercializing, or would like to try to take outside of campus to the public, which probably you do, that's where impact comes from, speaking that language may be useful to you. It's also a great tool for just thinking through for yourself the different aspects of a business aside from the technical components of your product or your service. So to work through an example, I am going to use the board here to do that. And first, we need to come up with a business idea for our business model canvas. And so my hypothetical business idea has several constraints, which I'll put up here. And then we'll take a little time, and you guys can come up with an idea for us to work on, and then we'll make a business model canvas. So the idea is that someone here has created a machine, and that machine is capable of going back in time exactly 5 minutes.
Are you sure you want to ride that stable? Yes. You've never done it before. I can do it.
Stabilizers is not easy.
So never mind how feasible that is, but going back in time 5 minutes, and let's say that our machine. Okay. Squeeze in over here. Got it. Yep. So we've come up with this machine. It can go back in time 5 minutes, but the process of charging this thing, it tends to overheat and you have to charge it really slow. You're working on that, but it takes a week to charge it. So you can go back in time once every week for exactly 5 minutes. And when you do that, you can go back and change something, okay? So those are our constraints. We won't worry too much about the technical components of this. Maybe you got a DeepSeek account over the weekend and typed in how to build a time machine, and it spit out some instructions. You built it, and it worked. So here we are. We've got a time machine, but it's a very constrained time machine. Let's say these things cost, or at least this first one we made cost about $1 million to build. And it's about the size of a VW Bug. All right. So we've got a pretty cool innovation, but if we never get our time machine out of the building, it's not going to do anybody any good. If we do, though, we might, make a lot of money. This could be pretty valuable. And so your task for the next maybe 4 or 5 minutes here, pair up with somebody and brainstorm an idea to take this out and commercialize it. So come up with a business idea based around a time machine that allows you to go back in time once a week for 5 minutes. So I'll give you a few minutes to come up with ideas, and then we'll run with one of those ideas. Let me call a quick timeout. No gambling ideas. Not because I'm against gambling, just because we can come up with something more exciting and lucrative than that. Yeah. A business idea. You can go back exactly 5 minutes, no more, no less, and change something 5 minutes ago.
So for 5 minutes, can you bring anything with this?
We're still working on that. All right, let's come up with something. 1 more minute. All right. If you've come up with an idea that you think is worth putting up here and considering for our example, feel free to share and I'll get it up here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So accident undoer. Got it. Go ahead. Okay. Malpractice mitigator. Good. Yeah.
Once a week, I would take the toothpaste off of Brian's toothbrush so he feels like he's going crazy.
What are we going to call that? Yeah. All right. Who has the budget? So what's it going to do for the military? What's it going to do for the military? What are we going to do if we can go? All right, so let's focus in on maybe special ops. Okay, so we could do something with air traffic control. Any others we want to throw up here? Go ahead. I was going to say like a good book, but I don't read that fast, so it wouldn't work for me. But pasta, you ate fast enough. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, what are we going to be able to do though in 5 minutes? What could we? So you could take like a very aggressive, highly leveraged position, and if it doesn't work, you just go back and try it over again. Okay. Okay. Yeah. You're violating my no gambling rule. You know those casinos are going to figure it out in no time, and you're going to be banned for life. Value proposition dead. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. $1 million foot remover. Sometimes we've probably said things that we would have paid $1 million to take back. All right. Anything else that we want to throw up there? As tempting as the good pasta repeater is, I don't know if I would pay $1 million to eat a good dish of pasta over again when I can just wait a few hours and hit that up. So let's run with this malpractice mitigator. I think that's one where we have a clear case of somebody who can afford to buy it, and it's specific enough that we can work through an example here. So this is the business model canvas. Usually you see it with kind of a rectangle around the outside. So there's 9 sections in the business model canvas. You might think that you work from left to right. That is not the case at all with the business model canvas. For some reason, you start either in the middle or way over here on the right side. And go from there. So value proposition and the customer segment. This is a little bit of a chicken and egg conundrum here. The value proposition is what value you're creating for the customer. And so you need to know the customer to create the value proposition, but the customer is going to depend on who the value or what the value proposition is. And so you can start with either one. I always like to be customer centric when I'm thinking entrepreneurially. So I like to start with the customer segment. So if we have a device that is able to go back 5 minutes and we're aiming it at like high risk surgeries, if I understood the idea correctly. Yeah. Who is going to be our customer? Who's going to pay for that? I need a spell check whiteboard up here. Anesthesiologist. Okay, surgical team. Anybody else we put up here under customer segment? Okay. Got hospital. Hospital. Anything else we want to get up here? Okay. So let's leave off there for a minute. Normally we would spend more time on the customer segment, really trying to be specific. We'll circle back in just a minute, but value proposition. So the value proposition, I like to start by explaining what it's not. And the most common thing that I see here is a description of the product or service. Okay. And this isn't the place for that. So we could put a device that goes back in time so you can change things. But that would not be the value proposition. Walmart, think of all the things that Walmart offers. Groceries, home goods, tax preparation, Subway, eyeglasses, all of those things. Their value proposition, one of the biggest companies in the world, 2 words. Anybody? What's Walmart's value proposition?
Low
prices, yeah, low prices. So everything that they do is under the low price mantra. That has changed a little bit as they've run into competition from like the Dollar Generals and the Dollar Trees of the world for that absolute low price. And so they've gotten more into the one-stop shop, and that's why they've added the Subway and the eyeglasses and the tax prep. But in general, we can sum up their value proposition in a couple words. So the value proposition is why someone would choose you over your competitors. Now, we may not have a ton of competitors at this stage of the game, but we still want to think about the why. So why would an anesthesiologist buy the Malpractice Mitigator 1000? Removes risk, okay, to their personal risk or the patient, removes patient risk. Okay, why wouldn't the patient buy it then if it's benefiting the patient? Yeah, wouldn't the patient buy it if they're the ones that are benefiting from risk mitigation? Okay, we'll come back to that for sure. Go ahead. Okay, so hospitals, we kind of have hospitals up here, but administration is under hospital, right? Let's get hospitals over here. So hospitals can charge more, so they can make more money. We can put that over here. So, but let's go back to anesthesiologists. So why, let's drill into that. Why would they want to buy this for $1 million? Go ahead. Okay. Why is that valuable? That seems obvious, but okay, so they could lower their malpractice, maybe the cost. Yeah. Reputation. What's another thing that probably they have to deal with on a maybe daily basis? They'll drive business, yeah, so that gives them a competitive advantage. And that's a good point. It drives their value proposition to customers so they can get more business. I always like to think about emotions here when we're talking about value proposition, because emotions tend to drive purchasing behavior. How do anesthesiologists feel when they make a mistake? Stress. And what's another related thing that they probably feel? Guilt. Yeah, guilt. It's a field that deals with a lot of guilt, a lot of depression. Suicide sometimes comes out of that. So lots of downside to having these surgeries go wrong and being able to go in and redo that. Valuable. So some pretty compelling things there that I think we could argue for an anesthesiologist. Probably apply to the surgical team as well. Go ahead.
Shouldn't we feel nothing?
I don't know if that's like a tongue-in-cheek joke about feeling nothing or, yeah. I mean, ideally you would be able to remove yourself from the emotions, but okay. Well, anyway. So maybe we'll focus on surgical teams, which probably feel something because they are not numb. Anything different for surgical teams that wouldn't apply? Probably the same kind of value proposition here, I think. Let's talk about hospital administration. So why would hospital administration be a possible customer segment? Okay. Okay. Why won't they just put them out of a job? How does that help them? They're not going to have any problems to solve. Good PR for the hospital administration. I think hospital administration could make sense here. I think the reason that might be a little bit challenging to specify is that the hospital administration in this case is probably not actually the customer. in the sense that they're not going to be cutting the check, but they are going to be involved in the decision. So if we're trying to go in and sell our malpractice mitigator 1,000 to a hospital or even to an anesthesiologist within a hospital or a clinical setting, we're going to need to get some understanding of the decisions that the hospital administration makes, how they make those decisions, where they have choke points, what problems come up in their day-to-day, because they are going to be either recommenders, so they might say, yes, we want to go ahead and pay for that, or not, so we need to get them on board. Or they may, in some cases, be decision makers. So they may not be the ones cutting the check, but somebody that's high up in the hospital administration may have a big say in the budget. And so if you have some control over the budget, you have some control over the decision to buy our $1 million malpractice mitigator. Let's talk about insurance. What would the value proposition be for an insurance company?
We have a payout.
So fewer claims to pay? Is that what you're getting at? Okay. So they could use it as an excuse to not pay a claim. Like, hey, look, this wasn't on us. This is the malpractice mitigator 1,000. That's why you got that thing. Okay. Another way to pay fewer claims. Okay. Agree with that. This one's a little bit complicated, right? Because the insurance companies need you to have problems for them to insure. And if we get rid of problems, then you're going to pay less for your malpractice, right? Lower malpractice cost was one of our value propositions for our surgical team and our anesthesiologists. So a little bit complicated for the insurance companies. We'll come back to them. Say again. Yes, I agree with that. I think that the insurance as a customer segment probably depends, right? Eliminating instances where insurance is needed could be a problem for the industry. But if you're a specific insurance company and you have fewer claims to pay, there's a benefit in that. So we'll come back to insurance because I have an idea for how we can incorporate the insurance companies. And then finally, we have hospitals here. Value proposition for hospitals, we already have make more money. What else might we have for hospitals? Yeah, less turnover, good PR. If you buy them from us, you're going to be the state of the art, right? If I was getting a surgery and somebody had one and somebody didn't, I'd be like, going with you. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so we've got a couple options here. The anesthesiologist specifically, or the hospitals. I think both would be good customer segments for us to run with. One of the big takeaways here is that usually when you come up with some kind of an innovation, even if it's not quite as cool as going back in time, there are lots of possible customer segments that you could choose from, right? And we could sit here and talk about which one's best all day long. We could probably make a longer list than that, but we wouldn't really know the answer just from talking about it. And so the other part of this is what we call the customer discovery process. So we might choose 3 or 4 of these, and we might think about what the value proposition is for them, but we'd be better off going out and actually talking to them about the problems that they face when they have a major surgery or when a surgery goes wrong or how that works or what the timeline is. We can only go back in time 5 minutes. It may be that we find out that they learned that a surgery went wrong 30 minutes after the mistake happened. We're not going to be able to help them very much at that point, right? Maybe the malpractice mitigator 2000 will go back 30 minutes in time. We'll be able to circle back to these folks. And there may be something else that happens in 5 minutes that we could address. And so understanding which customer segment to focus on is a process of going and interviewing those folks. And that's kind of the hard part. It's probably the thing that most people don't like to do. It's more fun to sit here and brainstorm which customer segment would be the best. So for our next activity, we're all going to go out and we're going to interview some people. But if you were going through this process, that's what we would do, right? It'd be like, okay, let's stop before we get too carried away here. Let's go talk to some people. That's probably the most important step and the most often overlooked step in the entrepreneurial process. So hypothesize some customer segments, but then go test that thesis by actually interviewing these folks, figuring out what their problems are. Maybe at the end we mentioned that we've got this technology and see if there's some application there, but the focus is on their problems first rather than presenting them with our solution. Because if we present our solution, they're going to say, yes, we want it, it's great, we love it, and we're not going to have really learned anything about that customer. So the interview process is really key at this point. But let's say we've gone out and we've talked to, let's dial in on our the surgeons. Let's say we'll talk about the surgeons specifically. Okay, so we're going to go out and we're going to try to sell this to surgeons. So next thing we need to do or at least the next section that I like to think about, the business model canvas, is what I think of as a triangle, even though it's demonstrably a square. Key resources, key activities, key partners. So key resources here are the things that you would need in order to deliver this value proposition. Key activities are actions you would take to get those key resources. And then key partners are either individuals or organizations that you would need to work with to get these key resources. So I think we have a clock in here. Let me check how I'm doing on time. Typical professor, I tend to wax long. So I'm going to clip along here to make sure we get through the business model canvas. But one of the first key resources is probably pretty obvious. We need some kind of protection of our intellectual property. We don't want somebody to come in and steal our tech and start making malpractice mitigators and selling them before we get a chance to profit from this. There's probably some personnel that we're going to need to figure out how we're going to manufacture. Certainly insurance. We could make a list of some of the key resources that we need here. Key activities then, filing a patent or at least a provisional patent. Personnel, and maybe we need to start out by making a list of key personnel and go from there. I don't even have capital up here, but we need to think about our capital needs, maybe make a business plan, go pitch this to some investors and so forth, right? We can have a list of activities to take. Key partners then. Some businesses, there aren't a ton of key partners. This would be one where we probably are going to have a number of folks involved. First of all, if we have IP involved, we have the feds involved, whatever office that is, that's going to register our intellectual property. Probably we're going to, with something like this, get some venture capital involved. This is something that would bring in a ton of money, but we're going to need a ton of money to scale it out. So maybe there's some VC money we're going to go after. Manufacturer, there might be a partner that we manufacture with at first, and then maybe we bring it in-house later. So we go through here and look at these. Now, the one I wanted to pause on and circle back to insurance is that one of our challenges is selling this thing. And I actually think we might be able to partner with insurance companies because this is going to really disrupt what they do, right? Malpractice, very expensive. Malpractice insurance is very expensive. That's a huge industry. We're not totally getting rid of the need for it. We can only use this once a week. I'm guessing that there's probably more than a once a week mistake that somebody makes, although maybe once they use it, they're done for the week. You use your malpractice mitigator and you're not going to be able to practice until Monday. I don't know how that would work. But we would need to think about insurers as possible partners because they might be able to work with us to sell the product. Okay, so insurers are working with health providers. If they're willing to help to explain the benefits of our $1 million malpractice mitigators in terms of saving on the cost of malpractice insurance, they're probably pretty good salespeople for us. Okay, so there might be a potential to partner with insurers. Maybe we even eliminate the need for VC money. Maybe they can help us with the funding. Right? There's some ways we could possibly integrate those aspects to get these things sold. All right, down here at the bottom, we've got cost structure and revenue streams. We won't spend too much time on that, so we would really get off into the weeds, but cost structure is how much these things are going to cost. Some of them are going to be very expensive. Starts to give us some idea of the expense side of our income statement. And then revenue streams, how are we going to make money on this thing? So obviously, it costs $1 million to make one. I've been throwing $1 million out there as the cost, but we need some profit margins. So they're probably going to be more than $1 million to purchase. Things that are really expensive like that, of course, we've got our price, but things that are really expensive often don't get paid for in cash. We often finance expensive things like cars or houses. So are we going to offer financing? Are there going to be any add-ons? Are we willing to come and install it and train you on how to use it? What are the costs associated with delivering this and the revenue streams that we can bring in accordingly? All right, last two sections then. Channels and customer relationships. So I like to start with channels. There are two aspects of channels. The first one is how we let people know about our value proposition, how we let people know that we exist. In other words, our marketing, our advertising. How would we let people know, our customer segment, know about the malpractice mitigator? How would we market this? Billboards? Yeah. Organizations? Like, what do you mean? Tell me more. Okay, so gain some legitimacy by partnering with them so that they can disseminate information about us. Okay, yeah. Yeah, great answer. Yeah, pilot, preferably with somebody who's also an influencer, has a great Instagram following. Yeah, all right. What else might we have for channels? How do people find out about healthcare innovations? Go ahead.
Not the product, but actually a service instead of the product.
Okay. This is a great point. And these things integrate into revenue streams, right? If we can sell memberships, that gives us steady income. We're not reliant on each $1.5 million sale of a malpractice mitigator. We can get some cash flow coming in every month from memberships. What's the other big way that healthcare innovations get communicated to anesthesiologists and surgeons and those folks? Yeah, there's a saying, something along the lines of you never get past what you learned in college, or that's bosh, but it's something like that, right? So universities, and then what do people at universities go to? Sorry? They publish, so yeah, we need to get it published to get some legitimacy. That's what I was after exactly, yeah, conferences. So you go to a healthcare conference, there's the presentation of published research, and then or research in progress. And then there at the conference, there'll be a whole room where they've got a trade show going on, basically. All the new things are being demoed and displayed, and they usually are sponsoring the conference too, so they're paying for people to be there, right? So conferences, we need to include that as a channel. Second part of channels then is the delivery. How do you get your thing to your customer? Amazon, probably. What do you got here? Okay. Okay. So people call you up and say, hey, could you go ahead and hit the button on ours? We messed up. Okay. Yeah, if we could pull that off, we just got a bank of them out there. We're like, which number are you? C11. All right. Try again. You got 5 minutes. Oh, this was a dichotomous choice. All right. So maybe it's something that we can keep in-house. We didn't really get into the details, but if we could do that, and then we just have a system like a emergency line, you call us up and we push your button. Let's say we can't do that, then what do we have to do? Probably not Amazon. Yeah, we need to go to you. We probably need to install it. We probably need to build it into your infrastructure. We probably need to train you how to use it. Like, that's my bad. I pushed the wrong button. Should have paid attention during the training module. Go ahead. Yeah, there may be, this might be something where in the course of our interview process, we learn what where does this need to be? Does it need to be mobile, or are you always just in these two surgical rooms? What's this going to look like? And so we would need to develop our channels accordingly, right? Depending on how complicated it is to use, there might need to be people that are on staff full time that we maybe pay. That's part of that membership, right? And then finally, customer relationships. And so I think Dr. Molnar was getting at this a little bit already with the membership idea. Customer relationships is how we develop and keep customers. And so membership is a great way to do that. Examples of this would be like punch cards at the coffee shop, or you could have like a local at the bar and they give you a mug that has your name on it, you can put it on the wall. Some businesses are driven by that repeat, come in every day and spend money here type of business. Now, one of my best friends has a custom wedding dress business in Kansas City. So customer relationships look different for her, right? She's not looking for repeat customers. In her case, she's looking for word of mouth. She's trying to get people to convince their bridesmaids to come to her, right? That type of thing. So what are our customer relationship strategies for the malpractice mitigator? What do we need to do to make sure that folks say good things about us and we can keep selling these? Yeah. Okay, so it needs to work. That's definitely the case. Probably our customer relationships are going to be built when it doesn't work. How we handle that, right? So what do we need to have in place in order to make sure that when things don't go well? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, with something technical like this, it's going to be driven by how well we're able to service this, how well we're able to solve the problem when there's a problem. When you push the button and just clicks and nothing happens, like that's going to be a pretty big deal. And hopefully that doesn't happen. We're going to probably be aiming for like airline level fail safes on this thing if this is our target market. And if we find that this only works 3 out of 4 times, we need to go find a different customer segment, right? Because this probably isn't going to be the one to choose. We'd probably find somebody else. But yes, technicians and customer support that is very fast, I'm guessing would be our, within 5 minutes, would maybe be our goal here. So anyway, here's a hypothetical business model canvas. Hopefully this helps to see how we can consider lots of different customers. We can speculate, but you've got to go out and ask people and get an understanding of their problems, because that's going to drive our channels and our customer relationships especially. That's so one thing that's kind of useful here. I'm getting to the end of my time is this is front of house and this is back of house. So this is all the infrastructure behind it. This is all the customer facing. And so getting this aligned with customer needs means going out and talking to customers about what they need. Another thing that may be helpful just as a takeaway, you can also draw a line here and here. This over here is desirability. This over here is feasibility. And we've got viability. Can we actually make money at it? I had a student idea once that was an airline that was all first class seating for an airline that charged only economy prices. It's like desirable? Yes. Feasible, technically? Viable? Probably not. So this can be helpful too when you've got an idea, okay, probably you're excited about it and you think it's desirable in some way, but maybe it's just a cool piece of tech and you don't know who it's desirable to. So you need to go through this customer discovery process. The feasibility is probably the thing you've been really focused on in the lab or in design meetings, like can we actually make it work? But then big question at the end of the day for commercialization is there a way to take this out and make money off of it so that we can disseminate it to the public? Any questions?
All right. Any questions for Dr. Hoffman?
Yeah.
Of course. Why don't you sit closer? When do you identify competitors? I know this is a technology that doesn't really probably have a competitor, but
Yeah.
that's what you do.
So the competitor conversation wasn't featured because of our extremely strong competitive advantage, but the value proposition is usually where we talk about that. So the value proposition, the question I like to ask is, why would you choose my product or service over my competitor's product or service? And so understanding what the competitor is offering and then positioning yourself and saying, our value proposition is that we are faster for the same price, something like that. Walmart, lower cost. That was their like sweeping value proposition, and they protected it by having the most innovative supply chain in the history of the world. So they are totally focused on that, whether you like their practices or not. But that value proposition is where you're thinking about your why statement compared to competitors. Good question.
Other questions? I think one thing to add is, I mean, as engineers, we're solving problems all the time. And so thinking about what that looks like if you solve a problem and then you're like, oh, wait, they would also like to solve the same problem and I can help them. So I think this is really cool for us in the school and for the engineering community. I'm assuming that's why Dr. Milner recommended that you come in. So I think, I mean, maybe can you comment on any of the opportunities where students or faculty can get engaged with maybe some ideas or I know that you mentioned a club earlier.
Yeah, thank you. I intended to leave myself time to do that, so thanks for giving it to me. First of all, we have the CEO Club, which we just started. Dr. Mueller came over and spoke. It's a group of entrepreneurship students mostly, although our new president is a mechanical engineering student, so we're trying to reach out across campus. So if you have an idea and you just want to come listen to entrepreneurial speakers or practice a pitch, definitely check that out. It's on campus groups. So if you go to like the campus groups page, you can type in CEO Club. It's the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, or feel free to email me. CEO Club, then I-Corps is probably the big one that we're actually very much hoping to, I guess, promote in College of Engineering. I-Corps is almost entirely focused on customer segment and value proposition. And so the idea is that if you've got some kind of innovation and you're interested in considering commercializing it, it's basically a 4-week deep dive into possible customer segments. It involves actually going and doing the interviews. That's part of the deliverable. It's going and interviewing possible customers. And then we talk about what good value propositions are in relation to those customers. And so it's just very much focused on those two sections of the business model canvas.
Is that right?
PS rather than E. So
O-Corps.
Innovation Core, yeah.
And then
and that's a National Science Foundation program. And we are hosting the second annual Boise State specific I-Corps cohort in, I think, September. We haven't nailed down the date, so you'll probably see us blasting your boards and emails and everything looking for participants for that. So if you got an idea, I-Corps is definitely on the radar.
And the club?
CEO. Yeah, CEO Club, and it's ce-e.o.org if you want to just check that out. And that's a student club. And we're very much interested, .org, yeah. Very much interested in reaching out across campus. I think the best teams that I've seen on campuses teaching entrepreneurship have been a mix of engineering and business students, or nursing and business students, fine arts and business students. Not that you have to have business students on there, but they're going to already have done the business model canvas stuff and the financial projections and that type of thing. So definitely check that out. Last thing, we are doing a pitch competition that we're doing a planning meeting, like first planning meeting a few hours ago. It's going to be in the fall. It's going to be like $10,000 in cash prizes. And so that might be on your radar. If you've got an idea you've been wanting to mess around with, that gives you an opportunity to maybe join the CEO Club, practice your pitch, and then pitch in the competition. Great network of mentors that are associated with that, and pretty much any industry that we could link you up with. So if you've got an idea and you want to run with it, email me and we can figure out where to plug you in.
Any other questions? There.
Thanks. What sorts of business ideas are students coming up with who participate in your I-Corps, and how far are these ideas making it?
So I-Corps has been around for a long time. I think we're in our second 10-year grant, but it's been around longer than that. Boise State is. And so a lot of the ideas that come through I-Corps are actually developed by faculty members here and in the Desert and Pacific region, which includes Arizona and Hawaii and San Diego State, UNLV, a bunch of universities, and community members as well. So that's, anything you can think of, really. Student-led projects. One of the cool ones we had at one of the CEO Club meetings was technology. It was like, trying to remember what the exact technology was, but it was basically something you attach to your children, and you can like set up zones in your house where if they get close to that zone, you get an alert. So as people are working from home more often, if their children are playing and they go outside and get close to the pool, yeah, they get shocked, and no, but you get an alert on your phone that says, hey, your kid is close to the pool, and that's an area that you don't want them in. And so that was an interesting idea. And they'd gone out in the north end and been like knocking on doors and talking to people that had kids about what their challenges are, like especially working from home, or being in the house with your kids, but not necessarily with your kids, as that's become more of a trend post-COVID.
Nice. Also, the Scrub Daddy sponge,
Yeah.
Did that come from Boise State, or is that a myth?
Not that I know of. I feel like
Okay,
I would have heard
thanks.
about that, but now I'm gonna have to go see where that came from. That was a Shark
Questions?
Tank product, I think, but yeah, I don't know. Not that I know of.
Any other questions? Okay, well, like I said before, I think Dr. Hoffman mentioned that the mixing these groups to take these ideas from just an idea to actually take it, somewhere further, I think is important. So there's some opportunities, and help me thank Dr. Coffman again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.